The first time I realized our homeowners association had turned into a miniature dictatorship was when Karen, yes, that Karen, left a neon pink violation notice on our front door because our garbage cans were 3 inches too close to the sidewalk. 3 inches. I stared at that slip of paper like it was a personal insult, which, let's be honest, it was. My wife Sarah just sighed and said, "Ignore it. She's bluffing." But Karen didn't bluff. Karen escalated. By the end of the month, we'd been fined for excessive holiday wreath enthusiasm. Christmas was 2 weeks away. Unauthorized bird feeder usage. Since when do birds need permits? And my personal favorite, overly aggressive tulip growth. I didn't even know tulips could be aggressive until Karen's handwritten note warned me ours were disturbing the aesthetic harmony of the cul-de-sac. Sarah, ever the voice of reason, suggested we just pay the fines to avoid drama. But then came the morning Karen crossed the line. I woke up to her screeching voice in our driveway, accusing Sarah of willful hydration misconduct for watering the roses before 8 a.m. That's when I saw it, the flicker in Sarah's eyes. The same look she'd gotten right before dismantling a corrupt CEO on the stand. "Oh, this isn't about the roses," she murmured, folding the $200 fine into her pocket. "This is about power. And Karen's about to learn what happens when you challenge the wrong person." I almost felt bad for Karen. Almost. It wasn't just the fines. It was the way Karen delivered them, like some kind of suburban supervillain reveling in her petty power. She'd park her white Lexus at the curb, adjust her oversized sunglasses, and strut up to our door with the smug satisfaction of someone who genuinely believed she was doing God's work. But the day she targeted Sarah's roses, that was the day the war began. See, those roses weren't just plants to Sarah. They were her late mother's legacy, transplanted from her childhood home, nurtured through droughts and storms. And Karen, she'd marched over like a stormtrooper in kitten heels, snapping photos of the water waste like it was a crime scene. HOA bylaws clearly state no exterior water usage before 8 a.m., she'd hissed, shoving the fine into Sarah's hands. Sarah didn't react. Not outwardly. But I knew that look, the way her fingers tightened around the paper, the way her jaw set just slightly. It was the same look she'd had the day she sent a billionaire tax evader to prison. That night, over a bottle of wine, Sarah finally said what I'd been thinking. "This ends now." She pulled out her laptop, typed something into the county court database, and smiled. "Karen's been fining people illegally for years. And tomorrow, I'm going to teach her what happens when you mess with a federal judge." The screen glowed with case files, violations, and a single damning phrase: predatory enforcement. I took a long sip of wine. Karen had no idea the storm she'd just unleashed. The next HOA meeting was supposed to be another boring hour of Karen lecturing about community standards, while everyone secretly checked their phones. But the moment Sarah walked in, wearing her courtroom blazer and that terrifyingly calm smile, the air changed. Karen barely glanced up from her clipboard. "Ah, Mrs. Thompson," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Here to finally pay your fines." The room went quiet enough to hear a pin drop. Sarah didn't sit, didn't blink, just placed a single folder on the table with a soft thud that somehow sounded like a gavel. "Actually, Karen," she said, voice smooth as polished steel, "I'm here to discuss how you've extorted over $28,000 in illegal fines from this neighborhood in the past year alone." Karen's pen froze mid-scribble. Sarah flipped open the folder. Pages of highlighted bylaws, bank records, even text messages between Karen and the landscaping company she'd been secretly getting kickbacks from. "Funny thing about federal judges," Sarah continued. "We know how to subpoena financial records." Karen's face went sheet white. Greg from next door choked on his coffee. And Mrs. Henderson in the back. She actually started slow clapping. Sarah let the silence hang just long enough to be excruciating before dropping the bomb. "The state attorney's office is very interested in your creative accounting." Karen's mouth opened, closed. For the first time in her miserable HOA career, she had no snarky comeback, just the dawning horror of someone realizing they'd accidentally picked a fight with a sleeping dragon. And Sarah, she just smiled wider. Karen's silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the room erupted into chaos. "You've been taking kickbacks," shouted Mr. Rodriguez, waving his own stack of fines like a torch. Mrs. Henderson stood so fast her folding chair clattered to the ground. "That explains why my grandson's lemonade stand got shut down after I refused to hire your nephew." Even quiet old Mr. Peterson, who hadn't spoken at an HOA meeting in a decade, slammed his fist on the table hard enough to make Karen flinch. "I knew there was something fishy about those lawn height inspections." Sarah didn't need to say another word. The dam had broken. Neighbors pulled out phones, comparing violation notices with the fury of a mob discovering they'd all been scammed. Karen backed toward the exit, her perfectly manicured nails digging into that cursed clipboard like a lifeline. This is defamation," she sputtered, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Then came the sound that sealed her fate, the click of a projector turning on. Sarah had one last surprise. A slideshow of Karen's own security camera footage, time-stamped proof of her snooping through backyards at dawn and laughing while writing up violations. The final image. Karen herself illegally parking in a handicapped spot at the grocery store. The room gasped. Sarah tilted her head. "Funny how rules don't apply to you, isn't it?" Karen made a strangled noise and bolted for the door, straight into a local news crew Sarah had quietly tipped off. The camera lights hit Karen's stunned face like a spotlight on a trapped animal as reporter Jessica Mendez stepped forward with a microphone. "Ms. Whitmore, care to comment on allegations you've been running an HOA extortion ring?" The video of Karen fleeing the HOA meeting went viral before the news van even left our neighborhood. By midnight, #HOA Karen was trending nationally. Memes of her shocked face plastered across every social media platform. But the real fireworks started the next morning when the state attorney's office announced an official investigation. Not just into Karen, but the entire HOA board. Turns out, Sarah's folder had contained more than just Karen's dirty laundry. It exposed a systemic pattern of fraudulent fines, tax evasion, and enough procedural violations to make a law student faint. The board members scrambled like rats off a sinking ship, resigning one after another in panicked emails that somehow always ended with, "I was unaware of these activities." Karen. She barricaded herself inside her McMansion, ignoring the reporters camped on her lawn, until the inevitable knock came. Not from police but from the IRS. Audits, it seemed, loved nothing more than a paper trail of undeclared consulting fees from local businesses Karen had strong-armed. Meanwhile, our neighborhood became ground zero for a revolution. The remaining sane residents called an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to dissolve the old HOA, replacing it with something radical: common sense. The first new rule. No rule shall be enforced that would make a reasonable person laugh or cry in frustration. The second. A formal apology letter from the community to Sarah, delivered with a bottle of top-shelf bourbon and a plaque that read, "The Rose Warrior, Defender of Sanity." As for Karen, the last we heard, she'd moved to a remote Arizona retirement community. One with famously strict HOA policies. The irony wasn't lost on us. Sarah just sipped her coffee that morning, watching the sunrise glint off her now unregulated roses, and murmured, "Karma's a gardener, and she always waters what you plant." Just when we thought the Karen saga was over, a certified letter arrived with an Arizona return address. Sarah sliced it open with her antique letter opener, the one she joked was for dramatic effect, and out fluttered a check for $28,750 made out to our HOA. The note attached was typed and signed and smelled faintly of lavender and regret, for the community pool renovation. No further contact. We burst out laughing until tears streamed down our faces. Karen had paid back every cent, with interest. But the real shock came 3 days later when a U-Haul pulled onto our street at dawn. Not with Karen, but with a nervous-looking couple in their 30s unloading boxes into her old house. "We got it for 40% below market value," the wife whispered to Sarah at the mailbox, eyes darting like she expected Karen to materialize and fine her for improper greeting etiquette. The realtor said the previous owner needed a sudden fresh start. Sarah just nodded sagely and handed them a welcome gift, a framed copy of Karen's most ridiculous violation, excessive autumn leaf appreciation, a real citation, with a sticky note that read, "For inspiration, break at least one rule a week." That night, as we sat on our now technically too tall porch swing, another repealed HOA law, sipping wine in defiance of the no outdoor alcohol after 9 p.m. rule that had mysteriously vanished, Sarah's phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single sentence. The roses looked treasonously healthy. We clinked glasses to the petty ghost of Karen past. Somewhere in Arizona, I swear we heard a clipboard snap in half. The first gnome appeared on the new neighbor's lawn overnight. A cheeky, pointy-hatted rebel with a spray-painted sign that read "Property of Karen's Regret," clutched in its ceramic hands. By dawn, 12 more had materialized across the neighborhood like some kind of garden variety revolution. The teens had clearly gotten involved. Sarah and I watched from our kitchen window as the new couple, Mark and Lila, stood frozen in their pajamas, staring at the gnome invasion with a mix of horror and awe. Then their 14-year-old son, Jason, emerged with a smirk and a can of neon orange spray paint. "Relax," he said, plopping a Santa-hatted gnome onto their porch. "It's a protest. The old lady who lived here banned lawn ornaments, right?" Lila opened her mouth to scold him, then suddenly burst out laughing. "She fined someone $500 for a pink flamingo once," Mark admitted, shaking his head. By noon, half the street had donated gnomes from their garages, some missing arms, others wearing tiny sunglasses, one even holding a laminated copy of the repealed HOA bylaws like a revolutionary manifesto. The local news showed up again. Apparently our neighborhood was now their go-to for feel-good chaos, and this time the headline wrote itself: "Suburban teens declare war on HOA trauma with plastic army." Sarah, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity. She handed Jason a folder. "Proof Karen banned gnomes because her ex-husband collected them. Might make your movement more poetic." Jason's eyes lit up like she'd handed him the nuclear codes. By sundown, the gnomes had multiplied to 50 strong, arranged in a perfect reenactment of the Liberty leading the people painting on Karen's old lawn. And the best part? There wasn't a damn thing anyone could do about it. The gnome uprising went viral, but not in the way anyone expected. Some sneaky teen, Jason, had filmed Sarah casually mentioning Karen's ex-husband's gnome obsession and spliced it with dramatic war movie music over footage of the ceramic army. The video exploded with 12 million views under #GNomeMercy. But the real twist came when Karen herself somehow ended up in the comments. Her verified account, since when did she have 80K followers, dropped a single fire emoji under the video, then immediately went private. The internet lost its collective mind. Overnight, Karen became an accidental anti-hero for the anti-HOA movement. Her face photoshopped onto revolutionary posters with slogans like "taxation without decoration." Meanwhile, Jason's TikTok fame attracted the attention of Law Talk lawyers, who dissected Sarah's original HOA takedown in a 10-part series called "How to Topple a Tyrant, Legally." Our quiet street became a pilgrimage site for anti-HOA activists, complete with a food truck selling FCK the fine print * tacos and a pop-up merch stand run by Mrs. Henderson's Etsy granddaughter. The final straw. A Hollywood producer slid into Sarah's DMs asking about movie rights. Karen's worst nightmare had come true. She wasn't just defeated, she'd become entertainment. The last gnome mysteriously appeared on our porch with a note. "Tell the kid he's got potential." Sarah framed it next to the original violation notice. Somewhere in Arizona, a phone screen cracked. The Hollywood emails started polite, then desperate, then borderline unhinged. "We see this as a feminist legal thriller meets David versus Goliath suburban satire," gushed one producer. "Meryl Streep's people are asking about Karen's role," lied another. Sarah deleted them all, until a $1.2 million offer landed from a studio famous for turning true scandals into Oscar bait. That's when the second certified letter arrived. Karen's new lawyer, because of course she had one now, threatened to sue for defamation, emotional distress, and unauthorized likeness usage if the movie proceeded. Sarah read it aloud at our block party barbecue, pausing dramatically before adding, P.S. Karen demands 20% of profits and a cameo. The entire street erupted. Jason immediately filmed Sarah's reaction and uploaded it with the caption, "When the villain wants a cut of her own downfall." Got 8 million views in a day. The studio, smelling blood in the water, offered Karen $50,000 for her life rights, and a single scene where she could defend her perspective. The internet collectively gasped. Then the plot thickened. Karen counteroffered. She'd sign only if Sarah played herself in the movie. "Let the world see who really ruined my life," her email concluded. Sarah's response. She forwarded it to the studio with one line. "I'll do it if my fee goes to the neighborhood's new community garden. And if Karen's scene involves her being outsmarted by a CGI gnome." The studio head reportedly cried laughing. Contracts were drafted. Somewhere a clipboard wept. The Hollywood premiere was supposed to be the triumphant finale to our saga. Champagne, flashbulbs, Sarah in a power suit smirking as the trailer played her iconic "Justice isn't about revenge" line to thunderous applause. But Karen, being Karen, had other plans. She arrived late. In a floor-length white dress, the gossip blogs would later call it "Bride of HOA," clutching a clipboard instead of a purse. The cameras ate it up. "Are you here for catharsis or chaos?" shouted an Entertainment Tonight reporter. Karen adjusted her sunglasses. "Due to Section 14B of my contract, I'm legally required to say both." The theater howled. Then the movie started. Seeing our lives dramatized, complete with a musical gnome battle scene and an actor playing me as a perpetually confused but supportive husband, was surreal. But the real spectacle was Karen. Every time her character appeared, the real Karen audibly hissed at herself from the front row. When the CGI gnome outsmarted her on-screen counterpart, she dramatically threw her popcorn in the air. By the time the credits rolled, the audience gave her a standing ovation for being the villain they loved to hate. The after-party was worse. Karen cornered the studio head, demanding a sequel about her redemption arc. Sarah found her drunkenly teaching paparazzi how to properly fill out violation notices. At 2 a.m., security footage would later show Karen stealing the Best Lawn trophy from the HOA's abandoned office and slow dancing with it in the valet line. The next morning, her Instagram, now verified with 250K followers, posted a single story. The trophy in a desert sunset, captioned, "Worth it." Sarah woke up to 47 missed calls from producers begging for a reality show. We moved to a cabin in Vermont the next week.